Hello everyone, Steve here. Welcome to the Science Shed, episode 10. We made it. So the Science Shed comes out every 2 weeks, and it's two university academics talking about things that we find interesting in science. So this week Nick and I got lots of interesting things to talk about. We're talking about Nick being on a grant panel and what that kind of involves and how we fund bits and pieces of science. I found a paper that effectively allows you to judge a book by its cover. So listen on to that and you'll get to find out about that. And we're also talking about how historically different scientists work at different times and kind of the implications that might have for development. The other thing to note is that we've done a Nobel special for this year's Nobel Prizes that have just been announced. We actually recorded that on a camera, so it's going to be a YouTube clip. I've been editing that today, so hopefully you'll like that. We'll try and release that this week as an additional Science Shed. So you have to go to YouTube to see that, but we'll let you know the link. But until then, using the magic of editing, I will now put you straight into the Science Shed. Ready?
Are you recording?
Yeah. He'll be like this for about 3 days now.
Just going through my vocal listening techniques for the podcast.
I was just watching.
Should I go through every time I do before a podcast? We've not recorded that before.
The preamble, yeah, it's quite extensive for you, isn't it? You really have a
yeah. No, I've got to go through all of those different I call them vocal exercises.
Vocal exercise. All right, so let's break it down. So what's the first one?
Do you
do it scientifically, or do you just like throw it? Is it much more kind of artisanal? Just kind of comes
it's
from
evolved naturally.
Right, it evolved. So biologically relevant.
The first one that you heard is called larynx pilates.
Larynx pilates. Okay, that was beautiful.
The second one was called.
Unlike your face, that was not while you were doing it. That was not beautiful.
The second one was called syrinx gymnastics.
Nice.
So I don't have a syrinx. Syrinx is a bird's vocal box which it uses to sing.
That's cool.
But I'm trying to. What I'm doing in my mind is I'm imagining that I've got a syrinx.
The bird.
And by imagining it, I'm able to attain a loosening of the vocal cords, otherwise unattainable.
Wow. I've got a question
Rush
about
did a song called "The Temples of the Syrinx."
And is that how you learned what a syrinx was?
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's how I've learned all of my.
How is it different from?
I've got no idea, Steve.
So it functions as a larynx, as far as you know.
I think it's kind of homologous to a larynx. So I mean,
it's the same thing. It hasn't evolved evolutionary. It's just the same thing that we have as a voice box.
Don't know.
Oh.
Welcome to the Science Shed, everybody.
Welcome, everyone.
Two expert scientists, academic scientists.
Anyway, it's interesting, isn't it? Don't know. That's right.
Anyway, right. So but all those
from Rush.
All those exercises are useful for starting.
Or being in a Canadian progressive rock band. That's also true.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, look, let's get on with it.
All right.
Science Shed! We're in the Science Shed! Science Shed! We're in the Science Shed! Come on, Steve.
Bunsen.
Burner.
Dolly.
Machine.
Internal.
Combustion.
Why do we need
Stove.
Petri?
Dishes.
Oscar.
Base.
Isaac.
Newton.
Transplanting.
I like our little kind of chats before we get into some meaty science, you know.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the little ramble.
I'd like to know what you've been doing.
Yeah.
You've always been doing more interesting things than me.
Well, I don't think that's true. What have you been up to?
Well, I've been doing a lot this week because I went on a holiday for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Oh, it's a long time. And then when you were away, I think I got somewhere between 700 and 800 emails. Ouch. And you know, when I was away, I didn't use my phone once.
Wow.
I switched my phone off.
Did you have anxiety?
No, I didn't.
Technology anxiety?
The absolute opposite.
I think if it was me, I would absolutely have anxiety to start with, but I think I'd push through it and then you get to a point where you just, I don't care.
Well, you just think, whatever. I'll just deal with it when I go back. When I got back, I had quite severe anxiety. Because I had a lot of things to delete. We've talked about that before, so I won't bother you with it again. But because there was a backlog, I've just been working like a dog this week. Yeah, and there's loads of things which, I've had to try and get over. And one of the things that I've got to do, I'm involved I'm on a grant panel.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So...
Sorry, that was a bit too camp, wasn't it? I'll try it again. Oh, that's really interesting.
But okay. a grant.
So explain what a grant panel is.
So okay, so when you're a scientist, you have to try and ask people for money. And you ask people for money, like people like sometimes charities, but also like research councils. There are 3 research councils which I'm kind of used to. There's more than that. I think there's 7 in total.
Yeah.
But they're all known by their initials: BBSRC, EPSRC, MRC. So it's medical, biological, and engineering, pretty much. And you write an application. You say, I want a load of money to do a job. To
drill a hole in a paint can.
So you ask them for money. Often it's somewhere between 200 and £600,000. That's probably the most common amount of money that people ask for.
Yeah. Which seems like a lot, but actually, really, that's a relatively small project.
That's one person for 3 years. Yeah, really. So $500,000 is basically one person for 3 years and all the stuff that they have to buy.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's very expensive science, all the consumables and things.
Yeah.
I mean, just so people know, I mean, roughly, typically, I don't know how much you ask for, about £15,000 probably consumables for a project, something like that, per year.
So you're usually asking in the region of somewhere between £50,000 and £80,000 for consumables and associated costs.
And so consumables will be like, if you're doing cell work, it'll be media
it's a lot for
and
that.
like pipette tips
and
and like all these kind of
sterile
things.
stuff.
When people kind of see images of labs and you see all the kind of plasticware and all the kind of glass bottles, it's all that kind of stuff, right? It's all the bits and pieces that you need to do science, which is actually surprisingly expensive.
When you first go in a lab as well, it's quite disturbing if you're doing sterile or work on cells. So if you're doing sterile work, you wang everything in the bin. It's really like non-sustainable. It's awful, actually.
Yeah. So every
you get
time
a tube,
you
squirt something in a tube, you use the tube, and then you throw it away.
Yeah.
Because it's just that apparently is the best way, the most economical. If you're washing up glassware, it costs a lot of money.
Well, actually, so it's also about the consistency. So all the plasticware and the glassware has been treated, so you throw it so that you can ensure that it is sterile, right? And actually, when you look at the relative cost of, say, growing cells or keeping these things alive, if you get an infection, sometimes if you're looking at some cells, they can take weeks or months to grow, right? So it's actually the cost associated with them getting infected is huge.
Expensive. Anyway, we digress. But so you ask for money, and then there's only a certain amount of money that the research council's got available, so they have to review them. So you write them, you send them off, they send them out to other experts. The other experts look at them and they say, oh, that's a really good idea. More frequently, they say, that's a load of crap.
Yeah,
I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
Yeah.
That's the usual response.
Yeah.
With me, anyway. And then they send the reviews back. Then the council sorts them all out, puts them all together in a big file. And then they have people... Then they send the reviews back to the person who wrote it and say, have you got anything to say?
Yeah, I told you, this is it's
and
rubbish.
You generally argue with them. And then they go back to the big council, load of suits somewhere. No, they're not suits.
So how did you? Did someone just email you and ask this, or did you know someone was on the panel that asked you if you'd be on it or something? How did that work?
There's often open calls to apply. I applied.
Oh, you applied? Oh, okay.
So this is one of the things. If you're a jobbing scientist, it looks good on your CV.
To be on a grant.
It's actually it's one of the best things that I've done, actually, because you learn so much about what goes on, the machinations behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This is the first one I'll be doing. But anyway, then all of these bits of paper, documents, go back to the council, and then there's a big meeting that lasts 2 days usually, and everyone sits round, and then they go through everything.
And so, like so just so people know, I mean, what's the success rate of these things? Probably about 20%, something like that, 25%?
Yeah, probably less than that now at the moment.
Right,
actually.
so 75% of all these ideas aren't funded. And we do that to keep it competitive, so people can have, that are only funding the absolute best science or the best ideas in the country.
I'm not sure that we do it just happens. But, I mean, basically, there's not enough money to go around. Otherwise, everything would be funded.
Yeah.
So it's like anything. There's more people who want the money than there is money.
Yeah.
A lot of the applications are absolutely amazing that don't get funded.
Yeah. And to be fair, sometimes you get that feedback, like, we really liked it, but it just wasn't quite good enough this time, and they encourage you to reapply. So
it's one of the most... It's one of the most important and sometimes dispiriting things that you do as a scientist.
So you've been working on that?
So I've had to... So you get a watch that you've got to go through, and you go through everything.
How many are we talking here? How many proposals?
At a meeting, there's somewhere in the region of 100 to 150.
But how many do you have to read?
Well, in theory, you're supposed to look at them all.
Can you believe 150
no
proposals?
Way.
A proposal is about 6 or 8 pages long. That kind of.
Yeah, but that's ignoring all of the other bump that comes with it.
Do you read that?
Yeah.
Oh, of course you do.
Well, no, it's often. If it's relevant.
We can't air this before you've been on the panel, otherwise people will be like, you've got to admit to reading everything.
Well, I'm not saying what panel I'm on, or I'm not giving any specific details, but Yeah, so you got to, and you may introduce four or five. So you have to go through them in detail.
Yeah.
And it's several hours for each one.
Wow.
I would say at least 2 hours for each one. More in my what I've found so far. And then you've got to sit around the table, and then you've got a load of people, and everyone's doing the same job. So there may be like 20, 30 people in the room, and they've each got that number of things, and you say, this proposal is about X, Y, and Z. They did this, they did that, they did so and so, blah, blah, blah. The referees thought it was a whole load of shit.
Shall we fund it? No.
Yeah. And then, or the referees thought it was good, but there was a problem. And then you say, well, they came back and they made a response, and they actually and then you can say something like, well, the referee, I don't agree with this referee because he's misunderstood what he said for this reason.
Right.
Someone else in the meeting might go, actually, no, what are you talking about, you fool? Like that to me.
Is that what you're worried about? Is it that same thing we spoke about? Is it Tim Bisley's?
I want to make sure. I want to make sure I do my job properly, and and I know how much time people spend on these bloody things because I've written enough, and you want someone to do a good job reading it, basically.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I'm going to go to it.
Yeah.
It's the first one that I've done formally. So
there'll be good biscuits. I
reckon
you get some good biscuits and tea privileges.
I doubt it. It's bloody research councils.
But come on,
you've
given all that time for free. They're going to give you.
I don't think you get much.
Maybe
I think you might get. We get accommodation, but not much more.
Accommodation and maybe a mouldy croissant.
You get a bit. I think you can get a bit of payment for it if you accept it. I don't know how many people do that, but actually, when I've gone on it, I'll.
We'll come back to it.
I won't. Obviously, these things, what goes on in them, is confidential, so I can't share them. But I can talk generally
about how you found it. That's really interesting. Well,
so,
when is it?
It's next week.
All right. Well, maybe we can get an update.
Yeah. Hopefully, something funny will happen.
Those 2 days in a room.
But I can't see much funny about it at the moment. But we'll see how we go on.
All right. Look forward to it. Right. I came across this paper, Nick.
Oh!
Okay, right. So this week, actually 2 weeks ago, in Nature Communications, right, came across this paper. It's called Terahertz Time-Gated Spectral Imaging for Content Extraction Through Layered Structures.
Sounds really boring.
Yeah, so it's a group headed by a guy called Ramesh Raskar from MIT. And they're interested in looking at...
I'm at MIT. We got some cool circuits. We're gonna play around with the circuits. I'm not gonna go to bed tonight because I love doing the science so much here. I'm in Boston.
Sorry,
that's my impression of an MIT researcher.
Really? Do you know many people from MIT? Or is it just Good Will Hunting? That's it.
No, I think I've met a couple. I hope they're not listening.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're using kind of terahertz imaging. So I don't know if you heard of that. So
that means like 4 legs?
No, terahertz.
You said tetrahertz.
Sorry, that was slip of the tongue. Terahertz.
Right, sorry.
So it's just a different region of the spectrum. So it's kind of between infrared and microwaves. So it's just a bit of the EM spectrum.
Could you cook with it?
No, not really, because you don't vibrate bonds with that wavelength. Okay. But the those scanners
is that where phones work?
No, gigahertz as well.
Right.
Those scanners you have in airports where people put their arms up. And
so you can see people's ghoulies.
Exactly, so you can see the ghoulies.
Do you ever hang around? Because I've seen those in airports now. And last time I went on a plane, I saw one of those things, and quite a nice looking woman went in one of them.
Right.
And I lingered around.
They don't have the pictures now.
Where's the screen?
They have someone checking it, and then they radio down to the person.
I was looking for the screen because I thought...
I just wanted to see some boobs.
whether I can see...
Because such a perv.
Well, I can't deny it. I think I was thinking of Airplane,
right?
Leslie Nielsen film when they were all looking at ladies coming through with... Anyway, let's move on.
All right, back in the room, Nick. Back in the room. Anyway, so there's this paper so they're looking. What they're doing is they're using like very fast. It's a laser basically, but it operates in a different region of the spectrum that we think about a laser normally.
Yeah.
And what it's doing is it's vibrating air pockets in layered structures, and what that does is you can gain information about how the light is scattered back from that. So that what they do, the way they show this off is they take
What the hell is a layered structure?
a book, right?
Oh, right, okay.
So what they do?
That was a good question I asked.
Yeah. So they take a book and then they scan it with this imaging.
Right.
And what they can do is they can read the book when it's closed.
Whoa, hang on a minute. So there's air pockets in the writing.
So 20 micron air pockets between the layers of paper in a book, and the other is they can go 9 pages down. They quantify it in this book. And yeah, essentially what they're doing is they're looking at the backscatter of this light, so typically they're femtosecond pulses, so they're very short laser pulses, and they scan them in a different position called raster scanning. It's very much how the old TVs used to work.
I read.
God, I knew that was coming. And so they can build up structures based upon how the air interacts with the pigment.
Right.
And how the light is scattered back from that, and they can
So
actually read a book when it's closed.
So the ink has some kind of air pocket associated with it.
No. So there's air pockets between the pages,
Right.
And
How do they see the writing then?
So you vibrate the air by shooting the laser through it.
Right.
And then what you're doing is that the phase and the amplitude of that light when it scatters back is proportional to the environment that air pocket was in.
So something happens to the light.
The light,
And it makes you be able to see it.
yeah, so I'm going to show you now. So here's a picture taken with a book that was closed, and what you're going to do here is, the picture's not very good, but it's much cool.
Yeah.
So what they've done here is they've gone through the book
Right.
just optically
Right.
while it was closed, so they can
Right.
image letters through a book. So I'm showing Nick some pictures now, and we'll put this up.
So they're single letters.
They're single letters.
That's
within
not a
a book.
good story.
What? It's not, but the point is they've read a book with it closed. Isn't that cool?
It is pretty amazing. They're kind of a bit late though with that technology because everyone reads Kindles these days.
Yeah, it's completely useless. No, they said actually it's really so. They have one of the applications they foresee is there's lots of kind of old books they have in libraries that are so fragile they can't even open them.
Oh, that's
And so the idea they'd like to do is actually read these things without using something ionizing like an X-ray or something like that, which
cool,
can actually
man.
damage the book. Isn't that cool?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I came across this paper.
Oh, that's a good one.
And we'll put the link to it on the Twitter feed. Hopefully people can have a look at it. There was a few media articles about it, and in like kind of most media way, they really hype it up. And I went and looked at the paper, and it's actually relatively boring. But it's cool. It's cool anyway to be able to read a book with it closed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what's happening in biology, Nick,
Um.
or bioengineering, or whatever you pretend to do?
Well, I. I don't know. You put me on the spot for
All right.
things like that. I don't know what's going on in fucking.
Got
biology.
any good exciting discoveries? My one of my postdocs he texted me on Friday. He's managed to get something working, which is pretty good.
That's cool.
Yeah. Which is always exciting. That to me, I think that's the most exciting things in the lab when you have an idea and you get someone to try it out and it works. That for me, that's the reason I do my job. I think like all the papers and the grants we moan about, but when it works.
Yeah.
And you see something for the first time, that's the exciting bit.
It is, yeah. Especially when it's taken a long time to get it to work.
Totally. Do you know? So
Like
I was
2.5 years.
Yeah, exactly. I was in the lab on Wednesday, right? So everyone was moaning the microscope was broken, right? It wasn't working.
Why don't they just fix it then?
Well, that's what I said. They said we need a new microscope. I said we can't buy a microscope. It's 35,000 quid. And I was like, I bet it's fine. And I was like, and to be honest, because our job is to build microscopes in my lab, I feel like if anybody can fix it, it's probably us, right?
Right.
So I go down, and they're like, "Oh, look, here's," and they took some data, and it was drifting. The microscope was drifting on the scale of about a micron, which is huge, right? For our microscopes, so a micron's about a hair's about 50 microns, and it was kind of wobbling on the scale of about a 50th of a hair, which may not sound a lot, but that's a lot for us. So anyway, I just went and had a look at it, and it was just all it needed was a clean. So I took it apart and just cleaned it with soapy water, right, and put it all back together.
Well, you did it.
I did it because
Why didn't they do it?
because they were saying they were just complaining it wasn't working. So I went in. And I actually quite liked it because I quite like being in the lab.
Oh, were you
One.
smug afterwards?
I was totally smug.
Yeah.
I was
Well, I'd never bring that to my door again.
Exactly. I just saved the lab £35,000 because so I went in and just like took it apart and cleaned it, like lined everything up. And like got some gloves on and all that. I really like doing that, and I like to feel like I felt like I still got some chops in the lab, you know.
Oh, well, that's
and
good.
so afterwards we measured it, and it was stable on about 15 nanometers. So I did about a
congratulations.
50-fold increase just from cleaning it.
Well, I'm sure your students and postdocs will enjoy that you've recounted that.
No,
tale.
they're going to have to put up with my smugness for a long, long time to come. cup of tea now, Nick.
Steve, you've had sugar in it.
I've had
can't-
sugar.
Why have you had sugar in your tea? You never have
I'm a
sugar in
bit
your tea.
I don't know. Maybe it's just all this podcasting is tiring me out. I need the sugar. I need the glucose.
Oh my goodness. So I've been having cups of tea with Steve on and off since 2009. And I like sugar in my tea because I'm that sort of person. I like my comforts and my treats.
That's a treat for you, is it?
Yeah,
in the
sugar
tea.
in tea is like a more luxurious drink than just tea without sugar in.
I
Isn't it?
disagree normally. It's been a long time, but I just fancy the sugar. Don't know
Anyway,
why.
every time I have sugar in my tea, Steve, in a haughty manner, says, "Gentlemen don't put sugar in tea."
An Englishman shouldn't have sugar in his tea.
Englishman, that's it. An Englishman doesn't put sugar in his tea.
Yeah.
And I've been clear evidence against. Well, actually, I was born in Wales. I'm kind of technically a Welshman.
Well, there you go. That's fine.
So,
So you can have sugar in your
Oh, I see. So you're looking down your nose
tea. Yeah, basically.
at the
yeah.
provincial.
Snoofy. Yeah. Yeah, so that's imperial Englishman.
You've just let your country down by being haughty and nasty about it. Anyway, Steve, what I wanted to talk to you about
Yeah.
working practices in the lab, right?
Working practice.
When's your favourite time of the day to do your
Ooh,
work?
that kind of thing. It depends what kind of work. So
All right, so tinkering and fiddling
in
around
the lab?
Yeah.
I think in the afternoon. I think after lunch. I think it's okay. So I think so I don't do experiments very well. I very rarely do experiments. But when I did, if you get stuff done, I always used to like to come in early, get stuff on ready, get everything aligned. So when people come in and we kind of, I normally ended up kind of collaborating with others. Everything was ready to go because I liked I liked the bit of a control freak there. I liked having everything planned and organised.
You didn't seem like that when I worked with you a couple of times. We were constantly scrabbling around trying to find bits and
Well,
pieces.
but that wasn't those kind of experiments are just getting stuff working. I'm talking about
right.
when you've got
You're talking
like
about doing
doing
something
proper
properly.
science. Yeah.
Right, you're saying that we never
Yeah,
did
we just did like
We-
bucket chemistry.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I think so for me intellectually, like if I'm writing a paper or doing something like that, I'm always best in the mornings. I think like when I first come in.
Yeah, I'm the same. So I think I am most alert early in the mornings. I have a major lull that starts about lunchtime.
Yeah.
And then I can be very alert in the evenings.
Right.
So
right,
I've got I think I'm Mediterranean.
right.
But I think
You
that
have a
if I had
siesta.
if
An
I had
intellectual siesta in the day. Yeah.
So I think you're right. If I had something monotonous, didn't require thought to do physical, I would
Yeah.
do it sort of 2 to 4 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think cleaning things or organising things or actually which is part of it. I could always find a few hours to do that, and that was generally in the afternoon. Why do you ask, Nick?
Well, I just found. Well, I was thinking a bit about it because I'd read some things about different types of mathematicians coming in and working overnight. Like scientists, they can
Yeah.
freestyle. We were in a position where we
Yeah.
can kind of, to some extent, choose our hours. Yeah.
Do you like to think of it like when you hear those stories of like when Zeppelin recorded an album in like 1972 in a house in Berlin? Do you feel a little bit like they just stayed up all night recording?
Well, some people do that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there was
I
a
kind of
guy.
feel like a little bit like that.
There's one of the examples we mentioned this before. There's a scientist called Julian Schwinger
Yeah.
in America. I think that's
Yeah.
how you say his name. Don't know. He was the model for Good Will Hunting in that film.
Right.
He would come in late at night, work overnight,
Yeah.
and then people would rock up in the morning, and they'd have equations written on the blackboards, and he would have solved them overnight. So other people would come in, and this mysterious person would have come in overnight and solved the.
But he was also an academic, right? Like,
He's a bit weird.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Well, he's
people are quite.
mathematicians. I think they're the weirdest.
They're definitely the
That was the
weirdest.
first thing we ever spoke about was the weirdness of science.
Yeah, I
scientists,
know.
but mathematicians are top.
Properly weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been reading a book recently, and it's a memoir of a guy called Otto Frisch. He's the guy who coined the term nuclear fission.
Ah,
Right. So,
interesting.
yeah, he and Lisa Meitner, who's actually his
Yeah.
auntie,
Yeah.
they came up with the idea because they realised what was going on in an experiment is that
Is
an
she-
atom
is
was
she
being
the origin of
split.
the Meitner effect.
Possibly. I don't
Right.
know. I've not heard of the Meitner effect.
It's when you see I might have made this up. We have to check this. It's when things superconduct and they float.
Oh.
I believe that's called that. So when you expect when a superconducting material expels a magnetic field.
I would say it's probably not her because she was a nuclear physicist.
I'm going to look it up right now.
Anyway, so do you remember we were talking earlier on about de Hevesy?
The Hevesy, yeah, they got with the Nobel prizes and the and
Oh yeah,
and
he's the dude who dissolved his Nobel Prize in acid. Or
yeah, the aqueous regia.
Yeah. But
Aqua
anyway, so Otto Frisch was working with de Hevesy and another guy called Plazek
It's totally not, by the way.
in Denmark. So this was when he was in Denmark. So it was the same time when Hevsey was there dissolving the Nobel Prize.
Right.
Anyway, De Hevsey was
He's a busy man, wasn't he?
He was a character as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is where a lot of people, they work overnight. Scientists, if they can, a lot of them would work overnight. Mathematicians,
We're not allowed to do that anymore.
Well, you could. I think you could.
We can't do it in the lab. In
No one
Cambridge.
would know, though, or care.
No, we have people that go around at 12 o'clock and kick people out of the department.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
That's like Rutherford used to do that as well.
Really?
Switch all the electricity off at 6.
But really?
Yeah.
Sleepy time.
It was only powered equipment between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And he was of the opinion that people needed their minds to rest. He didn't want people working very hard.
So Rutherford, the person that discovered the atomic nucleus, used an experiment that
First split the atom.
required no electricity.
Yeah.
So he could have done his experiment.
Yeah.
Fine, late at night. He just couldn't get other people that
He didn't know. He didn't
electricity.
want people to do it. And there was a famous quote by him as well, and it was something like, when do you? He was talking to some graduate student. When do you do this? And he said, "Well, I work till this to this, and then I work from this to this."
Yeah.
He says, "When do you get time to think, boy?" Anyway, so Hevsey, right? So I'm going to quote from the memoirs of Otto Fischer.
So Nick's got a book in front of him.
Hevsey suffered from insomnia and often came to the laboratory at night.
Right.
One day, so this is in the context of Frisch is working with Plazek. Frisch, just to give you some context, he likes to have a normal working day, get up at the right time.
Like
work
9 to 5 kind of.
His mate Plazek likes to rock up in the afternoon.
Right.
And work till the early hours, and they're supposed to be collaborating with each other.
Which must be quite difficult if you're only
rocking up
in the lab for half an hour a day or something.
Can you believe it? He says the trouble was that we tended to keep different hours. I like to get up about 8 in the morning, whereas Plazek usually appeared in the laboratory about noon, yawning and rubbing his eyes. So that's not conducive to a good collaboration.
I agree.
Anyway, Hevsey,
yeah.
So the dude we're talking about, he suffered from insomnia and often came.
He discovered hafnium.
Did he?
Well. I think so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
One day, he said with his deep Hungarian voice, so he's talking about them
Yeah.
keeping different hours. Frisch, I soothed around in the laboratory at all possible hours. Do never sleep. So I explained to him the reasons for my staying up with Plazek, usually till 3, trusting him to put the radium in its bottle and switch off the counters after I'd gone to bed, working on radioactivity.
Yeah.
Hevsey, with a faraway look on his long, melancholy face, began to tell a story.
Yeah.
In the village where I lived as a boy, he said, they once caught a young wild pig which had lost its mother. And they put the pig together with a young domestic pig so that they should grow up in company. But that did not work. The wild pig was used to a nocturnal life and would rummage around all night, keeping the tame pig awake. And the tame pig didn't let the wild pig sleep in daytime. So after a few weeks, both pigs died. That's the end of his little story. So basically, from then on, Plazek was called the wild pig, and Frisch was called.
Oh, that's
the domestic
beautiful! I love that. That's great.
So sometimes, though, I would like it's just inconvenient for a normal life, isn't it, to work when you feel most apt to working. Like I definitely feel very good at working in the morning.
Yeah.
Totally useless all afternoon, and I only wake up at 5 o'clock. But I don't want to live my life.
Mathematicians, not quite famously, they kind of expect you can only really do like hard thinking for maths about a few hours a day. So they kind of they have to quite often. You see they go for like walks in the afternoon and things like that.
Yeah, I suppose at night time there's much less disturbance. There's nothing going on.
That's probably why I think in the morning when I'm in before everyone else, I can get stuff done because I'm not going to be disturbed. I think that's the case. I'm easily disturbed.
Science shed! We're in the science shed! Science shed! We're in the science shed! Come on, Steve!
Bunsen.
Burner!
Dolly.
Machine!
Internal.
Combustion!
What do we need?
Stove!
Petri.
Dishes!
Oscar.
Space!
Isaac.
Newton!
Transplanting.
Science!
Not very helpful sometimes, is it?
No. We've come to the end, Nick.
Well, I do need to go to the toilet actually.
I'm kind of bored of you, to be honest.
Well, that does happen.
I just I might as well just go home.
Oh, well, it won't be long till we see each other again.
That's true. Hopefully, people like the podcast, and if they want to hear more, they should interact with us on social media on Twitter. I'm Steve the Chemist,
And I'm the Evans Lab.
We're also on SoundCloud and on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube.
We've actually got a Twitter account now. The Science Shed's got a Twitter account, not just me and you.
Whoa, who's going to write things on that then?
Well, either of us can.
Oh.
But mainly
I
me.
can barely handle my own one.
Yeah, well, it's not so you spend a lot of time on Twitter, really, is it, Nick? So hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Bye.